So, hello and welcome along to another edition of Isolation Interviews here on Hospital Radio Reading, and of course for my YouTube channel. And my guest is the fantastic OJ Borg. Thank you for joining me.
Mate, not a problem. Thank you very much for having me. I love your curtains.
Oh, thank you. Now, I mean, we must start off by talking about the strange 18 months that we've had. I mean, for you, how did you cope with the kind of new way of working and just the new life we found ourselves in?
Well, you see, here's the thing. My life didn't change that much. And I know it sounds weird to say that, but because Radio 2 decided we were still going to come into the studio to do our shows, I was still here. So I still came into the studio a little bit later. They asked me to come in later. So normally I would come in at 10 o'clock, but because of COVID protocols, they told me to come at 11. So nothing really changed. And also I've got young kids, so I don't really go out at night. You know, I work in the day, so I don't see anyone. So in a lot of ways, my life didn't change when COVID happened, which meant I was able to adjust. The only thing that did change was I used to sort of go off and do shoots or different jobs, and I couldn't do those anymore. And in some ways, it was good to reset. I'm not saying there's anything that's good come out of COVID because it's been terrible, the havoc that's been wreaked on people's lives. But from a personal point of view, if you're going to see positives in anything, then it was good to stop, spend more time at home and, you know, be around the kids a bit more. So in that way, it was good. And nothing outside of it really changed because I still came in here.
I mean, I imagine you were grateful that you were still able to go out and do your job.
Well, lots of people still could do their jobs. I mean, my wife, she is still doing her job. She did her job all the way through lockdown. She wasn't furloughed or anything, but she was sat at the kitchen table like lots of people. And in all honesty, she's really, really claustrophobic from it now. You know, she's sick of seeing our four walls. She'd been off on maternity leave for a year beforehand. So it was just literally, I think she'd gone back into the office for a week. And then COVID happened, everyone was sent home. And she now is still not back in the office, and she hates it. You know, she's ready to see people. Feels like she doesn't do anything. So yeah.
I mean, did you find it weird sort of traveling into work and just seeing no one around? I mean, I know that obviously you're sort of working later in the day.
I don't see anyone. But that's it. I don't see anyone anywhere. There's no one in the building when we're here at night. So other than them putting a few perspex screens up and us having to heat check, nothing really changed. I mean, I know it sounds like a really a cheap way out of it, but no, nothing really changed. I mean, it was weird to cycle in and see absolutely nobody, and now the bars have reopened around where we broadcast from in Salford, in Media City, starting to see more people again. But other than that, no.
I mean, I imagine though it gave you and so many people absolute respect for the NHS, the key workers, anyone who does an amazing job. So, I mean, what was sort of your opinion of them now, really?
Well, I've always had massive respect for the NHS. Anytime we did anything, I would always make a big point of talking about it on air, because I think we have one of the greatest services around. I mean, one of the shames is it's taken a lockdown to realise the NHS is such an amazing thing and we should look after people. And it blows my mind that we're even arguing about anybody getting any form of pay rise. It's like, people should be getting these pay rises anyway. We should look after the people that look after us. So let's not just clap for them. Let's make sure we look after them properly and give them everything they want. That is my personal view. It was my view before lockdown. It's absolutely my view after lockdown and going forward. And what was nice was to see the other people who we relied on to make sure we had food that we could buy. So doing a show at this time of night, we found that most people who were at work were key workers, and it gave us a new definition of what a key worker was. So, I guess before this, people might have been a bit like, oh, lorry driver's a lorry driver. But no, without lorry drivers, as we're seeing right now, how are you going to buy your food? Your lettuce isn't going to be on the shelf the next day. So it was lovely to see it. And it felt through the entire time like we were offering a service. And I absolutely believe in radio as a medium, as I'm sure you would agree. I think it's one of the greatest mediums it's ever been, and one of the least changed as well over the years. And I believe the BBC was offering proper public service broadcasting, because we had people who are by nature, if they work at night, they are on their own, they're solitary, they're excluded from anyone else. So it felt like we were giving a voice to people who were working. It was nice. It became even more special than the show was anyway, to do it.
And I mean, for you, what was the response like from people, sort of the listeners, from people, the fact that they could still listen to you, even though their world was changing?
It was massive. And I have to say, I try not to read out praise, because I think there's nothing worse than reading out your own praise on the radio. That way your head ends up expanding. I'm just not a massive fan of it. But we would get email after email and text after text saying, you've got us through these night shifts, through this. Yeah, when you see that, a little tear comes to your eye. I always end up getting really embarrassed by it. But it was lovely to know that what we provided helped people through what's been a very, very difficult time, and still is a difficult time for a lot of people.
Now, for you, where did the love of radio first come from? Do you remember where you kind of got interested? Do you remember sort of how it
Yeah.
happened for you?
Yeah, I used to listen to a guy called Mark Keane. He used to do a show on Leicester Sound, and he also did it on whatever the station is in Coventry, Mercia. So he did the show on both of them, and all of my friends, we listened to it. And I remember him, and he did the greatest show, and it was like music for the first hour, and then he had callers for the second hour, and then music for the third. But normally for the third hour, I would have to go to bed. I'd sit there painting my Games Workshop models, listening to this radio show, and it was in jokes, and it was great music. And I remember him doing a link off the back of "Sit Down" by James, and at the end of that song, it says, "Sit down if you're foolish." I can't think totally what the lyric was, and he came off back and went, "That's me, I'm foolish." I thought, that's brilliant, that's what I want to do. And I actually, like, one of the first proper radio shows I ever did, I did a bit of work experience at Radio Leicester, was Hospital Radio Fox, which was the hospital radio station for the Leicester Royal Infirmary, and I loved it there, and we had great fun. It was only after I'd been there 3 months, though, they told me that none of the actual radios worked in any of the wards. They had a problem with them, so they were still waiting for them to be fixed. So we were actually broadcasting to no one. But still, it's been a great medium, because I think creatively, I think there's very few mediums where if you think of an idea, and I am terrible for, I'll play a song and think, oh, we could do something funny off the back of it. Not written comedy. I think written comedy on the radio is difficult to do. If you miss by even 1%, I think you can sound just a bit of a, you can sound silly, let's put it like that. So, but I'll think of something to do off the back of it. And you can't do that in TV. And I've worked in TV. So I think that ability to be reactive and funny and creative and just play great records, and I think it takes a while to remember that when you're on the radio, it's about the records. Because a lot of people get into radio thinking, I'm going to try and do, 15-minute links or whatever. But yeah, there is nothing else. Like, I can sit here and play records for 3 hours and I love it. I mean, sometimes I'm a little tired, but then, hey, that's every job.
I mean, do you remember the first time you sat in front of a microphone and just how you felt? Do you remember that feeling?
What was the first time? Oh, the other thing that got me into radio was listening to Mark and Lard. Greatest radio show that's ever been created. Absolutely the greatest radio station. Which is why, if I can play you this now, because I'm just in the studio, I use this bed when I'm on air. You hear this bed? Which is the music that Mark and Lard used to use. So that's why we use that. It's my form of honouring the greatest radio show ever. First time I was in front of a microphone, I made a package for BBC Radio Leicester. So I did my 2 weeks work experience there. It would have been around 94. And they taught me how to edit on 3/4-inch tape. So literally, it was that hole. You took it out, the tape machine went, and at the end, and I did it on Leicester Market, which is still a call-it market. Did a few vox pops, the rest of it, and I literally had to get a China pencil and slice it, and then tape it back together again. I mean, this is like mid-90s. I mean, as if the BBC was still using that then. But I remember my nan heard it going out on Radio Leicester, and she was really proud. And I was like, yeah, I quite like this. The first time I did a proper radio show was probably Hospital Radio Fox. And I don't remember the feeling, but I remember loving the ability of playing records and sharing that music.
And I mean, then when suddenly, you get the job on, working for Radio 2, which is obviously, one of the biggest stations in the UK, that must be a real amazing feeling.
Come on, man. Tell me a bigger radio station than Radio 2.
There isn't one. That's the thing. There isn't one.
Biggest radio station in Western Europe, I think. One of the biggest in the world. Yeah, it is an amazing feeling. But I've never felt as at home on Radio 2 on any other radio station. Like, seriously, I never have. Any other radio station, I always have nerves. Here, just for some reason, it just feels great. The audience is great. The people I work with are great.
And I mean, it must be amazing when you get to not just have your own show, but also, you get to cover for big names as well. That must be such a great, a great honor and a great feeling to do that.
No, it's awful. I hate it. Don't want to do it anymore. Yeah, of course it is. It's wonderful. It is wonderful.
And I mean, going forward, is there a dream? Is there a show you would love to do, or, are you just enjoying what you're doing at the moment?
You don't get to Radio 2 without being ambitious. You obviously don't get to Radio 2 without being ambitious. And of course, I love doing this radio show. Would I like to do a show in the daytime? Of course I would love to do a show in the daytime. But here's the thing. I've always wanted to do a thing that was a thing. And I know that sounds like a very trite statement. By that, I grew up watching The Big Breakfast. And I love the fact that if you watch The Big Breakfast, you were there at the time, you loved the features like Egg on Your Face. And it felt like this non-exclusive club. It felt like if you were there, you knew about it, you talked to your mates about it that night. And it feels what we've managed to make with this radio show between the hours of midnight and 3. It feels like we have a club that everyone's invited to. And, you know, and some of the ideas we do are great. Some of them are funny. Some of them might be a little bit risque at times. But I don't think, you know, myself and one of the producers just left to go produce Breakfast, and Dan, who's here with me right now, you know, I don't think we'll ever have this sort of freedom again. So I love this show. You know, I don't want away from it. I want to carry on doing it. Would I like to do a show in the daytime? Of course. But, you know, I'm not leaving anytime soon. Let's put it like that.
And I mean,
that I know of.
And that's, I mean, the other amazing thing about, you know, being able to do a show like you do, obviously from 12 till 3 is like you say, it gives you that kind of a bit more freedom. And I suppose you've got listeners that are more, that you've got their attention because, you know, like you say, they're either working, like we said earlier, key workers working, you know, the night shift or doing things like that. So it must be nice that you kind of have more of a loyal audience, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's less choice at night. There's much less choice at night. So yeah, I mean, one thing we said when we started the show was a lot of people fall into the trap when they talk about late night radio of saying, you know, let's play some slow songs, let's get you to bed, you know, we're your voice through the night, and then play a bit of bird song or whatever. But if people are awake between midnight and 3, they're awake. They don't want to be made to feel tired. You know, if anything, we've got to almost ramp them up. So we create a show which would work at any time of the day. Hence why we have a lot of listeners who are expats who listen in from to Australia and Canada and America and New Zealand and places like that, because you could listen to this radio show and it wouldn't matter if you listened to it at midnight or midday. Hopefully the show would work at the same way it does any other time.
Now, for you, how does a typical day work? Because I imagine when you have to be up all night, you have to obviously try and sleep at some point during the day. So what's a typical day like for you?
So I don't call these overnights, I call them party hours, because I can be finished by 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't live that far away. I can be in bed, if not asleep, be in bed by 3:30, which is late, but it's not crazy late, which means that if I have to get up early, which I do sometimes to get trained somewhere, or if I need to look after the kids or whatever, I can do it. Normal day is I get to sleep about 3:30, 4, get up about 10 to 11, and it just depends what I've got on. Some days I've got a 2-year-old, so I'll be looking after her, or going to the gym, or other work, or meetings, or working on other bits and bobs, recording podcasts, that sort of thing. So, I mean, I don't really have a typical day. That's what I mean by, you know, that's what I mean when you said, you know, how did your life change when you hit lockdown? It didn't really change because I was sort of hanging around the house a lot anyway, playing computer games sometimes, but don't tell anyone that I'm slacking.
And I mean, away from radio, what other things is it that you love to do when you get the chance to do it? I mean, are there other hobbies for you?
Yeah, cycling. I mean, cycling is the big hobby. So I am a massive fan of jumping on the road bike, getting out there. I use Zwift a lot as well. So I work for Zwift. I do a show for them, which we record every Wednesday down in London. So lots of sport as and when I can. And computer games. And cycling computer games. It sounds like I'm a total nerd. That's because I am a total nerd.
Now, I just want to say before we say our goodbyes, is there anything that you would like to say to the patients who are currently in hospital at the moment, who are obviously listening in? Anything you'd like to say to them at all?
Oh, what do you say? Get well soon. I mean, that's such a cliche, isn't it? But because something a cliche doesn't mean it's not true. So get well soon. Listening to Matthew. What time's your show on normally?
So my show is from 7 till 8 on a Wednesday evening.
It's a fine time to present, that is. So yeah, keep listening. Will I be able to listen remotely? Yeah,
you can listen through the website, hrreading.org.uk. Nice and easy.
Matthew, I'm going to listen in. I'm excited.
Perfect.
I'm excited to listen in. So if you're in hospital right now, say thank you to your doctors and nurses who are looking after you. Give them a big kiss from me. Actually, no, don't do that. It's probably a bad idea. But give them a hearty handshake or a high five or an elbow bump.
Thank you so much, OJ. It's been an absolute pleasure. Of course, keep safe, and thank you again for your time.
No, thank you. Thank you for staying up late for me, by the way. Thank you so much.